Does the Bible teach that women can be pastors and preach in a church congregation? The answer is no. But before I go deep into this, let me go ahead and play a clip of someone that believes differently.
There are a couple of passages of Scripture where the Apostle Paul writes, don't let them teach, but let them prophesy. Well, what does that mean? Well, he's dealing with specific things happening in that church, so you have to know what did it mean to the original hearers. And for some of us, we don't know what it meant to them. It says, I don't think that a woman should instruct a man. I think culturally, because you see other examples of women teaching, prophesying in the New Testament, I think there was a specific issue in that church. But even if that's not the case, I would still see that passage of Scripture in that cultural frame because female leadership and females prophesying are celebrated in other parts of the Bible.
It's important to mention in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 37, Paul says, "What I write to you are commandments from the Lord." And we know Jesus says, "If you love me, keep my commandments. And if you do what I say, you are my friend." In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 2, Paul addresses Corinth and to all the churches. So this is not just for the Corinth church. Additionally, in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17, Paul says, "I'm teaching you the same thing that I teach to all the other churches." So this is not specific to them only. And when Paul addresses women remaining silent in the church in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, he mentions all the churches in verse 33 before he even addresses the issue. And we also see 1 Timothy is not cultural either. The reasoning Paul gives in 1 Timothy chapter 2 verses 13 and 14 is from the story of Adam and Eve. Now some people will get caught up because Paul says, "I suffer, a woman not." And it uses the word "I," and people say, well, because Paul says "I," this is not a commandment, this is his opinion. But we see Paul say "I" regarding things that are commandments from God. He mentions, "Now I say, if anyone preaches another gospel. Now I urge you, if there's anyone causing divisions in the church. This I say, no longer walk like the Gentiles walk." In 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 11, Paul states, "These things command and teach." It's a commandment. And Paul says in 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 15, "These things are how the household of God should act." This isn't the household of God just in Ephesus. So before we address the difference between prophecy and teaching, let's play another clip and address the actual meaning of these passages in 1 Corinthians and in Timothy.
Let's go back to 1 Timothy, right? Well, it says women shouldn't talk in church. Well, friends, we've been breaking that rule for decades. Because we have women who sing on stage. We have women who talk before they sing solos.
What does it mean for a woman to keep silent in the church? So it's important to see how Paul uses it. He uses it in verse 28, 30, and verse 34. And this gives us the context of what it means. So within the setting of learning is when a woman is to remain silent. This does not mention prayer. This doesn't mention singing. You might ask, doesn't the Bible say 2 or 3 prophets and it mentions him? So wouldn't that exclude women? It's important to note that the he isn't actually in the Greek text. So this can be men or women prophesying, taking turns. But understand, prophecy isn't teaching. Now you might ask about the married couple, Priscilla and Aquila, in the book of Acts. Didn't they take him aside and teach him more of the gospel and all that kind of stuff? Wouldn't that be a violation of what Paul says? Now it's important to note that in 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 16, we see that there's a distinction made between teaching someone and giving them correction. So a woman can give correction to a man. A woman can give conviction to a man and instruction in righteousness. But as far as teaching is concerned, the answer is no.
Now I'm going to go another route. In the book of Revelation, Jesus is encouraging and rebuking 7 churches. In one of those churches, there's a woman who's preaching, and Jesus is upset.
Not that she's preaching.
Not that the woman is teaching. He doesn't say anything about that. He doesn't say, and by the way, don't be letting women talk in church. He says what I'm upset about is what she's teaching. So you need to rebuke her and you need to correct that. And it just seems to me, and again, this is the other side of the coin, but it seems to me that if Jesus were upset about a female talking, then he would have said that there. I mean, he's not holding back on anything else.
It says, Jezebel, who is calling herself a prophetess, to teach and to lead astray my servants to commit whoredoms and idol sacrifices to eat. Did you catch that? It is to teach and it's her leading them astray. It doesn't say teaching them astray. It says to teach and lead astray. So the woman is being condemned for teaching. Lastly, I want to address one argument he doesn't bring up. Oftentimes, using Romans chapter 16 verse 1, people people argue that Phoebe is called a deacon in the Greek. Using this argument, they say, well, women can be pastors as well if Phoebe can be a deacon, which is supposedly only for men. Now, it's important to know that there's a difference between being ordained as a deacon and doing the work like a deacon. The word deacon just means to serve. The word deacon is also used in Luke chapter 10, verse 40 with Martha, who is working while Mary is there at the feet of Jesus. Now, this is before the church was established. Are we going to say that Martha was the first deacon in the church? No, she wasn't. But she was serving. She was not ordained as a deacon. She was doing the work like a deacon. So Phoebe is not an ordained deacon. She was just serving within the church.